it's Jesse Leach from Kill Switch Engage, and you're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair.
"17 minutes past the 4 o'clock hour. You're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and Craig Gorbunoff in the studio. So we're going to touch now on Jets. We'll have Chris Lopresti on the phone in about 10 minutes or so. So before we get him on, we'll talk Jets. We have Giants after that, followed by a little bit of some MLB, NHL, NBA, and, of course, our picks at 7 o'clock. For our Week 15 matchup. Spoiler alert, Cowboys aren't winning on Saturday. That's all I can say. But no matter who they start.
Optimism is the greatest energy,
Isn't it? Isn't it, sir? My optimism is going into the draft.
There you go.
Hey, you'll find a way to mess that up. Don't
worry. Most likely.
I don't know. Not anymore. The Cowboys draft.
Jerry Jones breaks his ankle on his way to just telling the draft pick. Cowboys omit their pick.
Yeah, that's very possible. So before that, we all get into that, and we'll save that discussion for March or April or May, whenever the draft is. We'll start with the Jets.
Maybe we could have that conversation on Nick's picks, if Nick's picks exist.
Nick's picks, I like it. So we'll start with the Jets right now, and we'll go first in their game against Tennessee, which was, we all know, a must-win game. That was a game that they not only had to win, they had to destroy Tennessee. And I made a bet on Sean's show, Craig, 3 weeks ago. I bet him that the Jets would win this game by more than 21 points. They won by 22.
Wow.
Look at you.
Wow. Look at you.
Mr. SMC Sports himself.
Making bets, taking money. My God.
Fantasy teams get renamed to I Suck. You win 6 of your last 7 and go to the playoffs.
You're a big bully, my man.
Hashtag,
big bully.
hashtag 15-1. Get ready.
Not quite as big as Brandon Marshall, but
Brandon and Marshall.
And we'll start with him.
Perform.
We'll start with him.
Yeah, let me talk about my Jets real quick, because it's been a long time coming for us to have a good year. And by the way, just my favorite part about being a Jets intern is being able to say us.
Yes.
Yes.
Now it is your team.
You represent the organization.
Do you get a ring if they win the Super Bowl, the AFC title game?
No. Get out of here. Get out of town. That's for football players. But that's my favorite part of being an employee. But talking about football operations, when you look at the Jets' offense across the board, this is the most complete offense that the Jets have had really since 1998 with Vinny Testaverde.
Right. Yeah.
You want to talk about the Chad Pennington era Jets? Yeah, they were efficient, but this offense now can win games.
Mm-hmm.
You have
explosive
pieces in Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. Both guys have the ability to take at the house, stretch the field, work it underneath too. Decker's really the most dangerous when he's playing in the slot, not on the outside.
And you know what's funny about Decker? I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's like last year, he had an okay year, very decent year, but it's funny when
1,000 yards with Geno Smith. I think he should get a Medal of Honor for that.
Yeah, well,
when
a little under,
but when Brandon
right.
Marshall comes in and Ryan Fitzpatrick somehow knows how to work in his system and everything clicks in his head, Eric Decker has become a really dangerous wide receiver.
No, absolutely. And the thing with Decker is, and before I get back to commenting on the Jets this year, last season, Decker was the offense.
Yeah.
There was no one else on the team. I mean, it was Decker, Ivory. Yeah, okay, he didn't come onto the stage like he did this year. It was Decker. Teams had to game plan to take out Decker, and you know what? He still had nearly 1,000 yards with a horrible quarterback. So I think he is a number one receiver, at least in my book. I mean,
I thought last year he played really well considering the quality of quarterback play
and his
around
injury.
him.
He missed
and
games.
the injury. He plays hard, and he brings it no matter what, and that's what I love about him. I think he's a really solid player. Personally, I feel bad for Devin Smith. I'm disappointed in
I was going to get to that too. No
plagued.
Devin Smith. He tore his ACL.
The injuries, and you hear things about preparation, consistency. That the game, what was that home game? Before the Giants, who'd they play?
Miami?
Yeah.
Miami. Okay, the uninspiring Dolphins. We had talked about this 2 weeks ago on the show.
Horrific.
But he had a really nice game that day.
Yep.
He had a touchdown. He had a couple catches, ran some good routes. I feel bad for him, obviously, last week. But, listen, the running game has got it going this year. The offensive line, when Mangold's in, it's a world of difference. And I think aside from maybe the trade of the offseason to bring Brandon Marshall in for a 5th-round draft pick, a conditional pick, to sign James Carpenter away from Seattle's massive.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're looking at the Jets' offensive line, while it's wildly inconsistent, at times it's the worst offensive line in football.
They need to work on the right side. The Giacomini.
I don't mind Giacomini, but I have a big problem with Brian Winters.
And Winters is
I would not be surprised if you saw in the Jets this year's draft take off offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds.
I wouldn't doubt it either. But
not a bad idea.
You look at Decker, you look at Marshall, but of course you got to look at the head guy right here. Ryan Fitzpatrick has to be playing the best football of his career in this Jets offense. They're finding ways to win, like you said. The Tennessee game is must win now. We'll go over the playoff scenario, and you wrote about this.
Yeah, I have the schedules here, too.
And I have them as well. For the Jets to make the playoffs, they're going to have to win out.
Yeah.
And now with Pittsburgh and Kansas City, Kansas City's most likely going to have the 5 seed. What do the Jets got to do? And what kind of help do they need?
Well, they can make the playoffs if they go 2-1.
They could lose. Really, Saturday would be better to lose.
Your best option, though, is to win out, which is tough.
Yes, they want to win out. You want to talk about the Cowboys game? As far as I'm concerned, that's the easiest game the Jets are playing over the next 3 games.
It's so sad I have to agree with that.
More than likely, they're going to win. The next 2 weeks, Patriots at MetLife Stadium, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, Patriots always come into play at MetLife, unless when they're playing the blue.
And at Buffalo. Both games are going to be really hard. They need to win out, and they need either Pittsburgh or Kansas City to lose a game.
Right.
Now, the difference here is the Jets have 1 NFC opponent and 2 AFC opponents, whereas the Chiefs and the Steelers have 3 AFC opponents.
In conference games.
So if all 3 teams win out, the conference records of the Chiefs and the Steelers are going to be better than the Jets, and thus they will make the playoffs, and the Jets will be that 7th seed outside looking in.
Right.
But should they lose one of those games, then the Jets are able to sneak their way into the playoffs.
That would bring up your Johnny Manziel point.
Yeah, right. So Johnny Manziel is actually going to be the best friend of the New York Jets over these next 3 weeks. The Browns play, well, technically the Ravens do too, but the Ravens are the most injured team in football right now, so they don't really stand a chance of beating anybody. The Browns are actually, playing some decent football right now.
When Johnny Manziel plays, to me, they're a different team. They respond to him.
This Cleveland team really connects with this guy. He has his differences. He has a difference on and off the field, but when he's in that huddle,
he brings energy.
He brings it. He brings the energy. The team responds. He's great.
I think last week was the best.
Factor.
Listen, he didn't put up as good in numbers as he did last week as he did in Pittsburgh or did in Cincinnati or even that early season game against Tennessee where he threw the 3 touchdowns to Travis Benjamin. But what I liked last week was there seemed to be a genuine desire to improve himself. You saw him bang his face with the iPad, and everyone made jokes about that. But really, to me, that showed the first professional moment I think I've seen the guy have, where he seemed committed to being better and disappointed that he wasn't.
I agree with that. I've actually been a fan of Johnny Manziel. I like characters. I find them entertaining.
I loved him in college, so.
But I think he's
an entertaining guy in college.
He's a really good player. I think he does some things on the field that traditional quarterbacks cannot do.
No.
And he's really the only person that can do the things that we watch him do. But the Browns play both the Steelers and the Chiefs. Mm-hmm. They really, besides the Broncos against the Steelers this week, have the best chance to take a win away from one of these teams.
Right.
Whether it's because they slept on the Browns because, hey, it's Cleveland. Everyone beats Cleveland.
Right.
Or, whatever.
See, I don't see, because the Steeler game, it's the last week of the season and it's away. And, you never know. Anything could happen any given Sunday. But I don't see Mike Tomlin allowing that team to go in there and create for a letdown. Like, if they lose it, to me, it'll take a spectacular effort. I could see maybe Kansas City. They're going to be at home at Arrowhead. That could be, they sleep on that game a bit. We saw them sleep on San Diego. They only win 10-3.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. That was bad, and we'll get into that later.
Horrific showing by both sides.
But before we get to the break, and I know we had talked about this during our last break, Craig, you and I, we were talking about different scenarios. To me, a really interesting one would be the Bengals.
Yeah.
Because they lose their starting quarterback. Now, you could make the same argument for Denver, but I still think Denver finds a way to win at least one more game to win the West.
Is there magic number 1 to win the West?
Well, right, they're 10-3, right?
They're 10-3.
10-3, so you have Kansas City could only finish 11-5. If Denver wins at least one more time, their in-conference record's better. They would win the AFC West by the game over the Chiefs. However, you have Cincinnati, who, without Dalton, they host San Francisco this week. I'm going to be honest, has been playing some sneaky good football.
San Francisco has been so inconsistent. It's very hard.
Despite having very little ability, to me, they have probably the biggest heart of anyone in this league. I mean, they have been beaten terribly more often than not this year by teams like Arizona and all these other teams, but you've seen them come back and battle hard. Blaine Gabbert's done a really nice job, actually, since coming in for Kaepernick. So you have the 49ers this week at home. They go to Denver, who that could be the game that Denver wants to win. They're at home. They get into the playoffs
if Dalton's
that
still
week.
injured.
Right, which they say 4 to 6 weeks for him.
Yeah.
And then they come back home and face Baltimore. Now, I'm not saying Baltimore is going to win that game, but
without Dalton, it's a very, very,
Right.
very
And the
different
other-
Yeah,
Bengals team.
when you look at the Bengals here, just for a second, Dalton is out. A.J. McCarron has to step up for this team to do anything
And the
going into the playoffs.
The other wild card in that Ravens game is that Ryan Mallett is probably auditioning for his shot to stay in football that last week.
Yeah.
He will play the next 3 games. So they could potentially lose out, finish 10-6, excuse me. The Jets would finish 11-5.
Assuming
if they
can win out.
Now,
Yeah.
if they lose one of these games and finish 10-6, and the Bengals were to finish 10-6, let's say Pittsburgh wins the North. I don't 100% quote me on it, but what I heard before on Joe and Evan, they were talking about it with a caller. There's the scenario that if they both finish 10-6, the Jets would have the tiebreaker because Cincinnati's AFC record would be worse than the Jets, which that sounds plausible.
That sounds accurate. Maybe we can fact check it during the break and look up the conference records real quick. But to me, I think that's the most likely scenario that we will see. It's a tie between that, and honestly, I think the Browns have a shot of beating the Chiefs. I really do.
It's very well the way the Chiefs played against San Diego. You saw it. They played down at home. You got them at home. It's Arrowhead. It's going to be the sleeper game of that week.
The Chiefs are red hot, but when you look at them on paper, they don't quite have all the pieces that equal a dominant team.
It's really odd with them. I mean, they're kind of an enigma. They started the year so terribly record-wise, yet when you looked at the games, they lost by, I think 3 of them were less than a touchdown.
Yep.
They missed 2 field goals for the win. They almost beat Green Bay at Lambeau. I think they only lost by 10 there.
I think the Browns actually match up pretty well. You look at the Chiefs really only have one primary wide receiver in Jeremy Maclin. The Browns have Joe Hayden, one of the best corners in football.
Mm-hmm.
Say what you want about the Browns. Joe Hayden's a beast.
Right.
You think, okay, he can take him out of the game. The Chiefs' run game is not as good as it was with Chenardrick West and Jamal Charles. Right. They're down to now their 3rd running back. The Browns are pretty stout in that defensive line area, that weak at linebacker and the safety position, but they're pretty strong on the defensive line.
Right.
They have a pretty good O-line, too, Joe Thomas and Alex Mack and Johnny Football. So there's a lot of things going on there. I think that's the interesting matchup.
Yeah. Exactly, and there's going to be a lot that has to happen on all sides for the Jets to even have a shot at the playoffs. It's possible, but there's a lot that's got to happen. We're going to take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we will have Chris Lopresti from WFAN on the phone with us to talk New York Jets, and of course, just what we're talking about now, what's the shot at the playoffs, impression on players, and all of that to come. 29 minutes past 4 o'clock hour, SMC Sports, 90.3 FM. Back after this.
College radio is a thriving community across many campuses. What does college radio mean to you?
One of the things that I really love about college radio is that you can come and you can do whatever you really want to.
College radio is pretty important because it helps network you with different people and you be part of a team and gain a lot of experience.
Because it provides an outlet for people to do what they love. There's a bunch of opportunities.
For me, it's memorable because I have a lot of fun doing it. I get to play all kinds of music that most people have no clue who's playing it.
You can really express yourself through music, through talk, through whatever it is you want your show to be about. You really have that opportunity to make it come to life in college radio, and that's not something that you find in every medium.
There's a lot of underground stuff that people can listen to that you originally wouldn't hear on contemporary radio.
There's so many opportunities. You can work with music, you can work with design, you can work with programming. It's just so many different things to do.
It's just fun, especially when you get to share it with people that may have the same taste of music as you.
Everybody who's a part of college radio understands each other and they are there for each other. So if you meet someone from another school who's also a part of college radio, you instantly have a connection and you can talk to that person and share your experiences.
It's something that brings together a bunch of people, and doing your own show makes you happy, and just getting involved with college radio makes makes everyone happy. It's really good for sharing music among other people.
College radio, it's lovable.
You find people with similar interests and everything. It's a really great thing.
Meeting new people and just attending people's shows is a really fun experience, so I think people should get involved.
And 31 minutes past the 4 o'clock hour, you are listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, Craig Gorbunoff, and now on the phone is WFAN Jets beat reporter Chris Lopresti coming on with us for a couple minutes to talk New York Jets. Chris, you are on SMC Sports. What's going on?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. Just listening to that little feature there about college radio, I'm getting a little nostalgic. It was about a little over 10 years ago I got my start doing college radio.
Really?
So those days, and happy to be on with you guys on a college radio station.
Happy for you to be on with us, Chris. So let's get right into it. You know, we have a Jets fan in the studio with us as well, and not a Jets fan, but he's season ticket holder as well. So a lot of Jets knowledge in here. And of course, I'm a little bit of a Dallas fan, so this matters to me as well. But just a quick impression for you on Ryan Fitzpatrick. You know, obviously the whole situation this summer happened. Fitzpatrick gets thrown into the starting role. What has been your impression over the leadership that Ryan Fitzpatrick has shown as the Jets quarterback in the last few weeks and mainly the whole season?
Yeah, I mean, I got to be honest. I've really been blown away. You know, obviously I've watched him from afar over the years and the different stops he's made around the league, and certainly understood the Jets thinking and bringing him in sort of as that, you know, veteran backup that was going to help Geno Smith out. It was clear to me that it was going to be Geno Smith's job to lose. We all know what happened. And at the time, I didn't really know what to think. I didn't know where the team was going to go. I didn't know how Fitzpatrick was going to respond, how the guys in the locker room were going to respond. And, look, it hasn't been perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There have been ups and downs, as you'd expect, not just from Fitzpatrick's perspective, but from the team's perspective as well. But I can tell you just from being in the locker room day in and day out this season, it's really remarkable the way the team has taken to him and how much respect he has earned in less than a season of work within the organization. So there's just a really good dynamic offensively. Certainly the chemistry he's built with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, I think that shows itself out on the field. But really just from top to bottom, from, you know, in the locker room, in the meeting room, on the practice field, on the sidelines, game day, and then obviously where it matters most between the white lines on Sundays. They've really done a tremendous job, and Todd Bowles has talked about continuing to grow and get better each week, and they went through that tough time in November, and we didn't really know what to expect, how they were going to come out of it. And obviously they've come out of it playing some of their best football of the season, and specifically on offense, this has obviously been their high watermark so far this season. Fitzpatrick's playing great. Marshall and Decker have done a tremendous job, and right now offensively they're really clicking on all cylinders.
Chris, Nick Flaherty here. Sticking with the offense, we've seen the last 2 weeks in particular, Bilal Powell kind of take on a larger role, particularly in the screen passing game. We saw him have a big game against the Giants, another good one against Tennessee. Has there been a focus with the coaching staff to get him more involved? Because early in the season, he really wasn't a key member of this offense.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a focus to try and get him more involved, but it also has to do with his health. He went through that middle part of the year where he missed 4 games with the ankle injury. I think there was another one where he was actually banged up throughout the course of the game or in the game, so he didn't really get involved much. And obviously Chris Ivory was playing some tremendous football early in the year. So I think if you go back to the beginning of the season, in a perfect world, Chan Gailey wanted both guys to be involved and trying to maximize the skill set of each guy. And they weren't really able to do that early on for a variety of reasons, a couple that I've touched on already. But Powell has come back from this ankle injury, and he just quite honestly looks like a different player. There seems to be another gear to his game, some extra bursts. And again, some of it does have to do with the type of situations they've gotten themselves into where, you know, they've fallen behind and maybe they've had to throw it a little bit more, or Ivory's been a little dinged up throughout the course of the game. So Powell gets in there and he's got the hot hand. But we've always known he's a versatile player. You know, he doesn't really wow you in one particular area, but he does a lot of things well. And he's really a complete all-around back. You can put him in there in pretty much any situation, and he's a real dependable guy. So Chan Gailey admitted he didn't know much about him when he first took the job with the Jets, but after reviewing the film with the team from 2014, he knew that he felt it should be a priority for the organization to bring Powell back. we forget he was a free agent this past offseason, and he re-signed for 1 year. So, they're kind of reaping the benefits of that here down the stretch, but this is the most important time of the season, and if they're going to get production from Powell and a consistent production from Chris Ivory, and you have that 1-2 punch there, that's obviously going to do nothing but benefit your offense as we come down the stretch here.
Hey, Chris, this is Craig Gorbunoff here. The Jets have an ugly pattern this season of losing games they're supposed to win. Seen it against Houston, Oakland, just off the top of my head. But they seem to win games they don't really have a business being in Week 2 against the Colts, for example. But when we're looking at this Dallas matchup in particular, everyone is so quick to write off the Cowboys, and for whatever reason, I kind of have that nervous feeling that this is that game that the Jets are supposed to win, and yet they're going to throw it away and lose here. Especially, I don't like games of football that aren't on Sundays. I always get weird when it's Thursday night, Saturday night, Monday night. It changes up your whole preparation. You're traveling, whatever. Do you think this is a trap game for the Jets?
I wouldn't call it a trap game, but I would definitely echo some of the concerns you just mentioned there. I think they've done a better job of it the last couple of weeks. I mean, the Miami game at home against a bad Dolphins team, they took care of business, and they obviously took the Titans back behind the woodshed last weekend, and I felt really good about that game going into it. This one, I would have some concerns about, not so much that I think it's a trap game, more in that I haven't seen this team play a really good true road game in a while. They went into Foxborough and obviously were very competitive, and you could argue should have won that game if Brandon Marshall doesn't drop what would have been a touchdown pass there late. But since then, I mean, they've had the Oakland game, they had the Houston game. They won in London, which is technically a road game. They won against the Giants, technically a road game. But when they've had to travel and go into someone else's environment, someone else's stadium, it hasn't gone particularly well for them. And, I wouldn't gloss over the primetime part of it either. You mentioned the non-Sunday game. This is an organization that's really struggled for a while in primetime games. Maybe the one that you could point to where they didn't was Geno Smith's rookie year back in 2013 when they went down to Atlanta and beat up on the Falcons. But, Dallas, look, it's been a disappointing season. Obviously, you take Tony Romo out of the equation and Des Bryant out of the equation while he was out with the foot injury, and it's going to be a struggle, but they're still talented up front along the offensive line. I mean, Darren McFadden's done a pretty nice job running behind that unit. And defensively, I mean, they can get after it a little bit. You could question maybe the effort and the production at times, but it's still a talented team that certainly had playoff aspirations going back to the beginning of the season before Romo got hurt. So I don't view it as they're going in there and they're going to stomp all over the Cowboys. I think that they do recognize that it's going to be a challenge. It is difficult. They've really had a hard time getting off the fast starts in road games. So the Dallas at this stage of their season is the kind of team that the longer you let them kind of hang around in a game, maybe they're going to feel more motivated and feel like they can, get a win and maybe wreck the Jets' playoff chances to a certain extent. If there was one game of the remaining three they could afford to lose potentially, obviously it would be this Dallas game because it's out of conference. But we all know that there's certainly a scenario where they run the table, get to 11-5, and are still left on the outside looking in. So it's important that they find a way to win every game. I do have some concerns about this one, but ultimately I'm probably going to end up picking them to win.
Yeah, and Chris, going off a few things what you just said there, the Jets, we all know, have not been the best road team this year. You look at games like Oakland and Houston, and, the next three games for the Jets are very important, and 2 of the 3 of them are on the road. You have Dallas on Saturday night, which, like Craig said, I kind of have to agree with, not necessarily, and you too, not necessarily a trap game, but a game that Dallas can hang in if you let them hang in as well, because, Matt Castle hasn't had the greatest season, but he's still in games when you let him hang in. You have the Patriots in the regular season home finale in Week 16, and then, of course, you have that Buffalo matchup in Week 16 that everybody's been talking about for weeks. So, and, of course, with scoreboard watching with Kansas City and Pittsburgh, what do the Jets got to do, and what kind of help do they need to make the playoffs?
Well, Todd Bowles said it today. He said, I definitely think we need to win out. Mathematically, there's a lot of scenarios where that's technically not the case, and that would depend on some of the other teams losing. Like you mentioned, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Denver could even come into the equation. Cincinnati, if they lost all 3 with Andy Dalton out. So I've tried this week not to get too wrapped up in all the scenarios because we've still got 3 weeks to go, and there are so many possibilities, tiebreakers, that it gets to be a bit of a headache. So I think Todd Bowles' message, both publicly and privately, is not to focus on all that other stuff. In fact, he was asked, hey, you're playing Saturday night. Any plans on Sunday to sit down and watch the Chiefs or the Steelers? And Bowles is a very buttoned-up guy and doesn't crack a lot of jokes, smiled and said, Nah, I got some Christmas shopping to do. So he really tried to, I think, lighten the mood a little bit, and I think the approach and the objective is, look, we've just got to take it one game at a time. You hate that old cliche, but they've just got to go in and take it one game at a time. Try and beat the Cowboys. They can't obviously control what's going on with the Steelers or the Chiefs or any of the other teams. They've just got to take care of their business. Ryan Fitzpatrick said it last week leading into the Titan game. We're not good enough to overlook anybody. So they really have to stay in the moment each day, leading up to one particular game and not look too far ahead because they've, as we mentioned, been poor in road games. They haven't gotten off to great starts. So if you get caught looking ahead to New England next week or Buffalo in Week 17, all of a sudden you might find yourself, putting forth a bad effort in Dallas, not getting a win there, and then maybe that wrecks any possibility of a playoff berth, depending on what the other teams do.
Chris, with the coaching staff here, and particularly Todd Bowles, who, I was really excited about when they brought him in last year. I loved him at Arizona as the coordinator, and people have had their issues with him and the way he manages the clock in game situations in particular. But in my eyes, I think he's come a long way since week one. What have you seen that's changed with this guy as he's grown in the job?
Well, it's a work in progress, and I think some of it is game-specific. Some of those issues that we saw come up maybe late in the New England game, I'm trying to remember what other games, maybe the Houston game, some of the question marks about clock management, timeout use, things of that nature, challenges, that some of that is really game-specific and depending on what goes on in the course of a particular game. So they don't always crop up or pop up every week, but I just look to sort of the stable approach he takes where he doesn't get too high or too low. And I think that for the most part, teams kind of adapt their coach's philosophy and their demeanor, their behavior. I mean, we saw it with Rex when he was here. There was a lot of good with Rex, with the way he approached things, but there was also the bad. And I think you want to try and stay in the middle of the road as much as possible. You don't want to have it too drastically high or too drastically low. And I think the Bills are finding out what that's all about. I mean, the 15 penalties last week is indicative of what a Rex Ryan team's all about. So I think Bowles has been able to, even through that time in November where they were struggling, just try and keep their focus on the task ahead and not letting them get too down. And when they win games, not letting them get too high and just kind of taking it week by week and, keeping the focus on getting better and correcting some of the things that they've had trouble with. It's not a perfect team by any stretch of the imagination. We know that. They have some holes. They have some shortcomings, some challenges that maybe other teams don't deal with. And that's to be expected when you take over a team that went 4-12 last year. So for him to have him where they are right now at 8 wins already and with an opportunity to, do some damage coming down the stretch here and maybe get themselves into the playoffs, or even if they finish 11-5 and don't make the playoffs, as difficult as that might be for the fans to swallow, it would be hard not to look at the season as a success or a step in the right direction. I think he's done a really nice job kind of coming in, being clear about what kind of environment he wants to establish here. He talks about building your program. We hear program in college, but it's like that in the pros too, especially when you're a first-time head coach and it's a new coaching staff and a new GM. You really kind of have to start from scratch and be very firm and definitive in your actions, your decisions, your words, because your players are listening. And a lot of these guys have been around the game a long time, and, they've been through the ups and downs, and they want to have somebody that they can believe in and someone they can fall in line behind. And I think for the most part, Bowles has done a good job of accomplishing that. Yes, it's early, still a long way to go. We'll see what happens in the years to come. But right now, it would be hard to say that the Jets are not on the right track.
Yeah, Chris, I definitely agree with that. When you're looking at the difference between Rex Ryan Jets and Coach Bowles' Jets, the big thing is the lack of penalties. The Jets right now, I believe, are the second least penalized team in the NFL, whereas they were one of the most penalized teams under Rex Ryan. Really what this Jets team has been able to do so far this season is doing a good job of not beating themselves, but with really dumb penalties. And when they do lose, it's because of silly things that they do on the field. When we're looking towards these last couple of games, on paper, if you ask me, I think the Jets are talented enough where they can compete with the Patriots and the Bills, and I think they'll get the win over Dallas. But if you ask me, the real X factor is going to be, can they continue this brand of football where they don't beat themselves? There's always a couple of plays a game, and I think you were the one who pointed this out on Twitter, actually. Ryan Fitzpatrick throws 2 to 3 balls a game that should be intercepted. And the teams that do intercept them generally beat the Jets, and the teams that don't generally lose. So that's going to be kind of the thing to watch out for, just if the Jets are able to beat themselves or not.
Yeah, look, you guys know, anyone that watches knows, it's almost always going to come down to the turnovers. Unless you're a real elite team, it's obviously very difficult to win a game when you lose the turnover battle. So Fitzpatrick's been in this stretch during this 3-game winning streak. We've all heard the numbers. It's 930 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. So on paper, it looks great, and it's not to take anything away from him. He's done a tremendous job. But I could go back in each of those games and point to plays where there probably should have been a turnover or a ball picked off. I mean, in the Giant game, Prince Amukamara dropped one right in his hand. Certainly last week, early on in the Titans game, there were some questionable throws in that first half that maybe a better defense is able to pick off and have a game-changing turnover. So there's a lot of luck involved, and I think Fitzpatrick would be the first to tell you that. In fact, leading into the Titans game, he was asked, what's been the key in the last 2 games? No interceptions, and he said, well, the defense is dropping them. So he's self-deprecating. He knows what he is at this stage of his career. He has his shortcomings and his challenges, and Todd Bowles has talked about it too. He's at peace with what kind of player he is. So, sometimes he's going to make a poor throw or a poor decision or maybe try and force the issue, but I think it's important to make sure that there aren't too many of those and that the good throws obviously outweigh the bad throws and the good decisions outweigh the bad decisions. For the most part, I think he's done a really nice job with that. So, you want to see that trend continue as they come down the stretch here. I agree with you. They're talented enough to be in all 3 games, and you could certainly make the case that there's ways that they could win all 3. I mean, we saw them hang tough with the Pats in Foxborough. In fact, they played the Patriots very difficult, and since I've been on the beat, since the start of 2013, all the games have been close, home and away. So I would anticipate that again next week. So we'll see what happens. But I think all you're asking for at this point, probably as a Jet fan, is you want to be able to go into that Week 17 game in Buffalo against Rex and the Bills and have it mean something. At least have your playoff hopes alive at that point. I mean, you can't ask for much better than that. It would obviously be great theater, great TV, a lot of drama, a lot of build-up that week leading into that game will be a lot of fun. So for the fans and for those of us that cover the team, I think that's what we're most looking forward to. The Jets seem to be heading in the right direction. They say that they're starting to figure things out and they're clicking on all cylinders, and obviously that's going to be the case when you win 3 in a row, but all it takes is one stinker to undo that. So I think it's really important that they start fast Saturday night and show people that, they're in this thing for real and that it wasn't just a little 3-week blip on the radar screen or, fooling people with a 3-game winning streak. They need to come out and really force the issue Saturday night, get a win that they can feel good about leading into their last 2 divisional games to finish up the season.
And sticking on Saturday night, Chris, you look at the Jets and the Cowboys. Like we've all said, earlier in the interview, it's not going to say like the Jets are going to go into Dallas and pummel Dallas, which is very possible at the same time. But we're not expecting that. We're expecting it to be a little bit more of a back and forth matchup, especially if Dallas stays in it. What are you expecting out of the Jets offense and the defense on Saturday night? Like who are your players to watch come on Saturday in Dallas?
Well, I mean, offensively, as good as the passing game has been, I still think that Chris Ivory's always got to be a player to watch. Even in games where statistically maybe he hasn't done as much, I really think it's because early in the season, a lot of opposing defenses probably didn't have the proper amount of respect for their passing game. And they basically said, well, Ivory's their go-to guy. Let's load the box and let's make Ryan Fitzpatrick and his receivers beat us. And they've certainly done that a number of times. And now all of a sudden Fitzpatrick and Decker and Marshall are getting a lot of attention. I know the NFL Network was in there to tape a sit-down with all 3 of them this week that I believe is airing Saturday night before the game. So nationally, people are starting to take some notice, and that's going to happen when you win games and put up big numbers. But to me, it still starts, especially in a road game, they've got to be balanced. They have to have some semblance of a run game. So that starts with Ivory and the offensive line up front. And I think you've noticed, what is a theme to this 3-game winning streak? Well, they've gotten healthy along the offensive line. Nick Mangold is over some of the injuries he was dealing with in the middle part of the season in early November. Brian Winters has stepped in for Willie Colon and, for the most part, done a pretty nice job, even though he's been a guy that people like to criticize since he's come into the league a couple years back. So offensively, I think that they've got to make sure they establish the run. They've got to go through Ivory, and that's going to force the Cowboys defense to maybe bring some extra guys into the box, and then obviously that's going to do wonders for your top 2 wideouts, getting them some one-on-one looks. And I think Fitzpatrick has shown enough of a chemistry with those 2 that, you can feel pretty confident that in most spots they're going to be able to win their one-on-one matchups. especially with Eric Decker on third down, and certainly in the red zone where they've just been phenomenal this season. On the flip side, it's about stopping the run. I mean, it's in the trenches. The Jets are the number one run defense, but if you go to those Houston and Oakland, those ugly road games, Latavius Murray embarrassed them that day there in Oakland, and the Texans were able to do some damage running out of the Wildcat with Steve Shorts, and that opens things up for a quarterback. The same way it opens things up for the Jets, it does the reverse for them on defense. So their guys up front need to control the trenches against a very talented and very tough Cowboys offensive line. You certainly want to put the pressure on Matt Castle, put the ball in his hands, and make you beat him. I know Des Bryant is there on the outside. He's an ultra-talented player. But similar to what happened with Odell Beckham and the Giants a couple weeks ago, Bryant could go off and have a big game. It doesn't ultimately mean you're going to lose that way. You want to make the Cowboys one-dimensional and take your chances and look for some opportunities to force turnovers. So to me, it starts up front on both sides of the ball. It's more flashy to talk about the passing game, but going on the road, you've got to control the line of scrimmage and do some dirty work in the trenches to be able to come out with a win, and that's what I'd look for them to do Saturday night.
All right, Chris, thank you. Well, last question, and this is completely a non-Jets-related question. This is just a football question. I think Craig knows what I'm about to ask. You have 4 teams on paper. They're all terrible, but one of them is going to make the playoffs. Who, in your opinion, is winning the NFC East?
Oh, man. I wish I could lie to you and tell you I've crunched all the numbers and looked at the tiebreakers and all that stuff and all the different scenarios. I know the Redskins, I think, technically control their own destiny right now. Look, growing up a Giants fan, as frustrating as it has been at times, I don't know. It just seems late in the season when it seems that you're finally ready to put the nail in the coffin on Tom Coughlin or Eli Manning. They find a way. It's almost like a vampire. You got to drive the stake through the heart. And I know they've got a tough road. Maybe the Vikings game on the road doesn't look as difficult as it did a couple of weeks ago, but certainly the Panthers coming in here this week, even with all their injuries. I don't know. I just think Eli is going to rise to the moment, rise to the occasion. He certainly did Monday night in Miami. That was a tremendous game that he played. And I just don't have a lot of faith in the other teams. I know Chip Kelly's got his team playing hard again, but I'm not a Sam Bradford believer at all. And I'm certainly not a Kirk Cousins believer, even though he's played well at home this season. So it's not so much about me growing up a Giant fan. It's just I've seen the Giants in this spot before with their backs up against the wall. And I don't know. I think some way, somehow they find a way to get it done. And even though that they've played worse than the Jets, and the Jets beat them straight up, I think the scenario, I could paint a better scenario in which the Giants are the one to come out of the NFC East as opposed to the Jets coming out with one of those AFC Wild Card spots. Much more competitive, obviously, in the AFC. But I will say I think the Giants are going to find a way to get it done.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chris, for the interview. It's always a pleasure having you on WMSC. We hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks for joining us, Chris.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Happy holidays. And,
you too.
Enjoy the football this weekend, all right?
All right, Chris. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
That was Chris Lopresti, Jets beat reporter on WFAN, giving us his insight on the Jets this weekend, in the future, who's going to win the NFC East.
He made a very good point. It's significantly easier to win the NFC East than to get one of these wild card spots.
Oh, yeah.
You have, in the AFC wild card, you have Kansas City, who's so hot. You have the Jets, who are playing really well the last couple weeks now in a row. And you have the Steelers, who, and I happen to agree with these people, a lot of people feel that they're the biggest threat to the Patriots in the AFC, and I probably agree with that right now. The way the Steelers are playing on offense, their defense is coming around. I think they're really dangerous. But I think Chris hit the nail right in the head. The AFC wild card is so much harder to win right now in the NFC East. I mean, the Cowboys at 4-9 are not even mathematically eliminated yet.
Which I'm tired of hearing, by the way.
I know. You said it before, and I agree.
That's why Chris didn't even mention them. They're not winning this division.
Exactly.
They're out, but that's how bad this division has been.
But you know what? As bad as the NFC East is, I would argue the AFC South is even worse.
Thanks.
AFC South is garbage.
Well,
it is.
This is the first year you're not going to win it by default. Your game against Houston this weekend may decide the whole thing.
And we'll get to that later, but not to try and correct you here, but when I heard you say that the Jets had no business beating the Colts on Monday night, I cringed.
They didn't. They really didn't.
We're awful. We're an embarrassment.
On paper, the Colts win that game.
Not in week 2.
We are built really, really poorly. We have no offensive line. But from day one, I said it. The first day we did the show, right? I said they will lose to the Bills, and they'll lose to the Jets.
I'm gonna be real. You are, without a doubt, then the world's greatest analyst, because you were the only one then who didn't think that the Colts were a Super Bowl team.
Not even kidding. I did not think we had.
I think I picked the Colts in that game. I'm not even gonna lie. I can't remember. But
I did too. Everyone at at the site I write for, Interstate Agreement, it was a foregone conclusion. The Jets would open up the season 1-2. Like they were gonna win week 1 and lose to the Colts and lose to the Eagles.
I thought the Colts would win 10 or 11 games and win the South going away, but I never felt they were a Super Bowl contender from training camp. I'm not a fan of
the only one
of Ryan Grigson. When you make picks like Philip Dorsett, when you don't need a player like Philip Dorsett. Now he's good. I think he might be a really good receiver one day. Don't get me wrong.
I agree with
he could
that.
really develop. But when you hear things like, well, we just didn't have the guy we wanted at that spot, and we didn't want to trade down. Well, but what good did it do to draft him? They wanted the word is they wanted Landon Collins or Eddie Goldman, and they didn't like him in that spot, and that's fine. Then you trade down.
Yeah,
you get them in the next round. I never understood that. I don't hate Pagano. I think Pagano got an unfair deal here. Really, to be honest with you,
I think they're probably going to let him go.
The team, he's gone. The team has regressed from his first season. They've let talented players go. I'm not saying that Ricky Jean Francois is a monster or anything, but he was a decent run stopper, and they missed out. I didn't really care that they didn't get Ndamukong Suh, and I definitely don't now because it seems that his motor is clearly the issue there.
He's horrific.
He's turning into Albert Hainsworth as we speak.
He's a diva. I mean,
he's a horrific diva. That's what he is.
But I was really disappointed that they didn't get Terrence Knighton. And he's had a good year in Washington. He's helped Washington become one of the best run defenses in the league. And the Colts are baby soft against the run, and that's one of my biggest concerns. They brought in, a bunch of guys that if you brought in some stars, they would be really nice free agent additions. Like, okay, if you got a Knighton or a Sue, Trent Cole and Kendall Langford are nice additions to your team because they're nice kind of interchangeable guys. Cole especially, unfortunately, Trent Cole had to play a much larger role than they would have liked this year. They were planning for him to just play third down, and he hasn't at all fit into that, mold or situation. Mathis being out didn't help, but I was not really excited for this. I thought Andre Johnson and Frank Gore would be much better, and Andre's been a lot
agree
worse
with that.
than
Andre's pretty much been non-existent with the exception of 1 or 2 games.
Which is what you didn't hope for, because you think, okay, you signed with Indianapolis, so you got a quarterback who can throw the ball.
I mean, they overpaid him from the beginning, but I understood why they did at the time. It made sense to bring him in.
It made sense to bring in a veteran like him in. And you weren't expecting a superstar season, but you were expecting, at least a consistent season.
It took away
win games.
I liked it because it took away the need to use a draft pick on the receiver.
Besides
Except
maybe
they did.
And they did.
Besides maybe 1 week, and it was the 1 week I started him in fantasy.
Right.
I don't think he's helped the Colts win one game.
No. Dante Moncrief is broken out this year. I mean, Hilton's been injured, so Hilton hasn't been able to take the role that we're used to. But Moncrief has been fantastic. But we're at the point where Luck is hurt, and I mean, for all the people that said that Luck was turning into RG3 and he was going backwards, you got to get a grip. The guy was playing with 2 broken ribs and this fracture, and his shoulder was beat up.
Let him go get healthy,
his
and then
shoulder
we'll talk.
was separated.
Yeah,
he now has like a lacerated kidney.
He lacerated his
Here's
spleen.
my thing: let him go get healthy, and then we'll start comparing him to bad quarterbacks.
It's just the problem is, they're at the point this week where Charlie Whitehurst might play, and not that T.J. Yates is so wonderful. But I would probably take Yates over Whitehurst.
Yeah, this is weird because Luck's not going to play and Yates is going to play, and Luck's not going to play, Hasselbeck's not going to play. That's what I was trying to get at. So it's a battle of the third string, and I believe the third string quarterback for Houston, or is that second string?
He's the second string.
Yeah,
and
he started the season.
Not trying to be
so basically
ridiculous here, but really don't rule out Jacksonville. They're
No.
not out of it.
No,
That's
stop the damn game.
No, but I was thinking about that.
They need Houston
the other day.
I don't know who the tiebreaker they have over because they split with the Colts, and I don't know what their situation is with the Texans. They might have beat them at least once.
I'm not 100% sure, but you're right. They're not mathematically out of it. They can win the division, and they're playing the best brand of football out of any team in the AFC South.
To me,
right now.
next year, they're a sleeper like wild card team at the very least.
I thought they were one this year.
Blake Bortles has gotten leaps and bounds better than I ever thought.
Listen, he put up 50 points last week.
Yeah,
right?
he has been fantastic.
Allen
Robinson,
is
thank you.
leading the league in touchdown reception.
That's a player that when the Colts took Moncrief in that draft, I wanted Robinson, and they ended up going a different route. I don't even remember who they used.
And the Jaguars got Atlanta this week. Atlanta hasn't won a game since.
Atlanta, please. Matt Ryan's being compared to Ryan Leaf.
Which draft class was Allen Robinson?
Allen Robinson was the year after Luck.
It's almost like
2013, right?
2013.
That was still the Idzik Jets.
Yeah.
I wanted a wide receiver so bad in that draft.
Yeah.
And there was a million of them. And he doesn't take one until round 4 with Jalen Saunders. I was like, get out of here.
Within 4 picks of each other, they went Jarvis Landry and Allen Robinson within like 4 or 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
Robinson was a player that I was really, really high on. I really liked him. I think the Colts, they took Jack Mewhort, the tackle from Ohio State, who's not bad, but, Robinson, I'm happy with Moncrief, don't get me wrong, but I look at Robinson now and I see the player he is. I loved him at Penn State. Everyone wants to knock on Christian Hackenberg. You realize what Christian Hackenberg's lost around him in these last 2 years.
Very true.
The offensive line is 2 members are playing in the league right now because Donald Penn is with the Raiders and you have Donovan Smith with the Buccaneers. Now, neither of them were that great in college, but they were starters. And you have Allen Robinson go, Bill Belton's, and I think he's an undrafted free agent somewhere. But, these were guys that were already on a not-so-deep team because of the scholarship issues with the whole Sandusky situation, that now they didn't get to bring in the talent to replace these players.
Hackenberg might actually be a pretty good pro quarterback.
I think he's
going back on the Jaguars for a
late
minute.
Second.
You're right. They've been playing their best brand of football. They got Atlanta this week. Atlanta, I feel like, hasn't won a game since Brett Favre was drafted as their quarterback. So
remember when they were 4-0 this season?
5-0.
Do you remember when they were 5-0? Do you remember when they were?
Apparently, I don't.
6-1.
Do you remember when they were 6-1?
Read a really interesting article.
I picked them to win the South too.
About a scout saying that Matt Ryan is turning into Ryan Leaf. Now that's nothing to do with nothing that he's using narcotics or anything. I don't want to I don't want to send a message here that he's doing something illegal. But the scout had said from the standpoint he's never seen a quarterback with less confidence in his game right now than he saw Ryan Leaf play, and that Matt Ryan doesn't trust his receivers anymore, which is a horrifying thought because he has Julio Jones and all these different players, and Devonta Freeman and all these different guys. He doesn't trust his offensive line, which I could kind of understand, and he just doesn't trust himself to make the right decision. It's got Atlanta questioning whether or not they should stick with him. I don't think they should pull the plug just yet. I've never been a huge Matt Ryan fan, but I don't think that he has to go now. I think you look at this season as the outlier more than the norm now for him, because
I think this is the wake up call too.
It's a wake up call that he has to get better mentally, and I think he has to prepare better. But I don't think it's grounds for we should just cut him loose and draft someone. I don't think there's a quick fix in this draft right now because you look at Atlanta's
I hate
team.
the quarterback classes.
The classes, they're all projects for the most part.
You know what it is, and you know what, you could talk about Atlanta all day and talk about how Matt Ryan is just collapsed. He's been part of the problem because this whole team is collapsed on every aspect of a game. Offensively, defensively, special teams, receivers, running backs.
You want to talk
defense.
about garbage special teams? We'll talk about the Jets.
Oh,
wait, who?
Man.
We'll talk about the Jets special teams if you want to mention garbage special teams.
But staying on Atlanta for a minute, it's Matt Ryan's been part of the problem. It's been a team failure this year.
It's a team-wide phenomenon. They've collapsed.
My whole thing with both Atlanta and I know that people think Carolina is going to win it all and say what you want. I don't like their team at all. I think Carolina has a really good, their defense to me is the best part of their team with Kuechly and Thomas Davis and Josh Norman. I don't buy Cam as the league's MVP. And I really don't think that, Carolina and for that matter, Atlanta has as well. You look at the schedule, that's really not that impressive who they've beat. Particularly, you look at Atlanta, start 5-0, the Eagles, not a good team. The Giants, not a good team. Dallas without Romo, a world of difference from Dallas.
Dallas should have won that game.
And Dallas should have won that game.
Dallas should have won that game, and
the Giants should have beat Atlanta too.
That was the beginning of, I believe, Devonta Freeman, because he went off in that second half.
They beat Houston 48-21. Houston's nothing special either. Washington, nothing special either. They needed overtime to win that game.
Washington and Houston are this close to winning their divisions.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
But that's all relative to their division.
Right.
You can put them anywhere else. They're finishing third at best. They lost to New Orleans, who have not had a good year. They beat Tennessee 10-7 and have lost every game the rest of the way. I'm not saying that. Listen, you have to play the games you're given, and you play your schedule out, and that is what it is. But you could make the argument, first of all, they didn't beat anyone good Atlanta the first few weeks. They probably should have lost to Dallas and to the Giants. And really, Washington had them beat as well. And really, to me, when you look at Carolina's beaten 2 good teams. They have beaten Green Bay and Seattle, who are probably both in 2 off years, I would say.
I mean, if you want to throw the Eagles into that conversation, I think the Eagles at times are a good team.
Yeah, when motivated properly, it would seem.
I would say the Saints, I They're an elite offense.
What I'll give Atlanta at that time was that New Orleans was really, they had won 2 straight going into that, and that was because then New Orleans got to 4-4, and they kind of felt like, because then the next week they beat the Giants, they kind of felt like they were in it at that point.
Yeah.
So I can give you, Breeze was playing great, and their offense is lethal. Don't get me wrong. I just think there's a lot of hype put into Atlanta and Carolina.
Carolina's had a very easy schedule.
Yeah. They play the NFC East and the AFC South this year, and those are the 2 worst divisions in the league.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, I don't want to take away from their accomplishment because they are undefeated and they have won the games. I totally give them that.
And, just to that point of being undefeated, I went undefeated in fantasy football, and I feel pressure to win.
15-1.
Wait, and I feel pressure to win every week.
Listen,
and this is a real football team that actually practices and actually does things.
I give
Carolina.
They're
going 13-0.
You're going 15-1.
I give
Not
them.
gonna happen.
I'm going to win. I'm going to win the whole thing.
I give them.
I've outscored you every week. Every week, Sean, I look at the scores.
But that 1 week,
it's not going to
happen.
happen.
That 1 week, it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
I'm going to be the Giants of 2008.
I give Carolina
I'm the 72 Dolphins.
Oh Jesus! Wow, there they are. I give Carolina a lot of credit for finding a way to win games in overtime.
Definitely.
They've invented different ways to win, and I think that deserves credit. I just don't. To me, Arizona's the best team in the NFC.
I agree.
Arizona's my Super Bowl pick. They're going to. To me, they're winning the whole thing.
I would agree. Yeah,
I love Carson Palmer. They're the most well-rounded team, and that's what's
Offense,
impressed
defense,
me.
Special teams, everything about
is with
coaching.
with Chris Johnson out and Ellington out. Kerwin Williams and David Johnson are both going for 100 yards a game. I really like David Johnson actually this year. I mean, on special teams alone, I thought he was going to have an impact. He's kind of fitted in different roles.
Core too. John Brown, Larry Fitzgerald.
Arizona is a really interesting team. They're really well-rounded, and to me, if anyone could go to Carolina and win,
it'd be the Cardinals.
It would be the Cardinals.
Right.
Maybe New Orleans. Not New Orleans. I'm sorry. Seattle. Where did I get New Orleans from? Wow.
Seattle, maybe. Yeah.
Seattle, maybe, but I don't. The defense just isn't the same.
It's not the same, and the only thing with Carolina that's fascinating is how they've had this high-powered offense without any wide receivers.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, they didn't have any wide receivers last year, and then the wide receivers they did have got injured in the offseason.
Do you think Cam's the league MVP?
I think you have to give it to him.
I think you have to as well.
But I don't understand have to though. I don't get that.
Okay,
because the numbers don't even dictate that he has numbers.
He's out there. First of all,
average numbers at best.
He goes out there and he wins games. As of late, his numbers are elite.
They're better. I would say
as of the past 3 weeks, he has elite numbers.
The 5 touchdowns were against Washington, right?
Yeah.
Okay, against Washington. This week against Atlanta, he was really, really good. Both of those games in particular.
But the whole Atlanta game was expected.
I just felt like, okay, I watched the Cowboy game Thanksgiving Day, and Phil Simms and Jim Nantz, who are not known for their prowess. I don't love them really. The Super Bowl this year's ruined because it's on CBS.
No, it was worse last year.
It was
with Chris Collins.
That was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen.
Because Odell Beckham, Al, and Delvin Breaux and Stephon Anthony.
Did he really catch that?
But with Phil Simms, he sat there and he talked about Cam Newton on Thanksgiving Day like he was Troy Aikman. Or like
no, it's really...
He had 1 touchdown, which he ran for, completed 50% of his passes.
It's wrong. It's wrong to talk about him in the same sentence as guys like Troy Aikman, Joe Montana. So be it.
Well, that I can agree with.
But the thing with Cam Newton is he goes out there, he wins games.
Yes, he does.
He's multi-talented in running, in passing, right? He's a leader. Right now, I don't know if I trust anyone more in the fourth quarter than I trust Cam Newton. Right now, at least.
Outside of Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger, I would say you're absolutely right.
He's in the conversation.
I would say Carson Palmer, but Palmer, he hasn't been in many close games this year, and that's a credit to his team, really, because they blow people out.
Exactly. But Cam's been doing it with nothing. That's why I feel like he is the MVP this season. Now, I think the Cardinals are the best team this year. I think Bruce Arians should win Coach of the Year.
He should win Coach of the Year.
I think he won it last year, didn't he?
He did. Palmer probably not MVP, but a comeback player of the year has to.
Comeback player of the year for sure. Actually, I think if you're not going to give it to Cam, Carson Palmer is this year's MVP.
I think Carson Palmer, and this is not to take away from Brady because Brady's had an amazing year as well. As always, I wouldn't expect anything less from him, whether you like him or not. But Palmer has been fantastic. He has lit it up from day one. And the 2 games that he had to, I know they lost to St. Louis and they lost, I forget who the other loss was to, but, they had the Bengal game, they had the Minnesota game, those 2 games on primetime television, they made plays to win. Yep. To me, the game that was his MVP statement was Seattle. They went up there, they're up, 19 points in the third, they blow the lead, they go down 11, and he absolutely rips apart Seattle.
They come back. And the thing with the Cardinals, and hopefully I can regain my train of thought. No, I think it's gone.
Well, how?
Anyway.
Oh,
here we go.
There you go.
So I had mentioned on my podcast the other night,
right?
About it's gone. It's gone.
How well rounded they were. Maybe
it's something about Carson Palmer.
Well.
Oh, okay. So on my podcast the other night, I had said this is the best football that Carson Palmer's played since his rookie season, 2004.
I would say since USC.
Well,
the Heisman.
2004, he takes the Bengals team to the playoffs, tears his ACL against the Steelers. Hasn't been the same quarterback really since.
That's true.
Right? He was
tore his ACL again last year.
Yeah,
he
was just
it was so
weird
with him and those Bengal teams because
he was winning games.
They had a year on, they'd go 11-5.
He was,
and then they'd go 4-12. He couldn't figure it out.
He was so injured.
Yeah,
that his entire career. And I said this before on air. It may have been my show. It may have been when I've called into your show. There's something weird about Arizona. Yeah. Arizona is kind of
yours.
It's kind of the fountain of youth.
Rejuvenates everyone, man.
You see it in the Phoenix Suns. I mean, Steve Nash played there until his late 30s.
Well, I believe
goes to LA and never played a game.
I believe it's a good place
healthy.
For arthritis pain. So
Jermaine O'Neal, whatever it is the fountain of youth. Athletes can play there.
It must be. Maybe that's why Zach Greinke went over there.
So when there's something about this late resurgency of Carson Palmer that really it's 100% true. He's playing his best football since his rookie year.
Craig, we said it last year, and Carson Palmer isn't having the season he's having now last year, but we had even said it. This team stays healthy because you had Ellington and Palmer, who weren't playing great, but they were getting the job done.
If he doesn't go down last year, they won the division.
9-1 when Palmer went down. We picked them to win the Super Bowl in their place.
Yeah.
On Craig's call, if they had stayed healthy.
Yeah.
And then they
actually, I thought even with Drew Stanton, they had a shot at
winning.
winning.
Me too.
I tell you
with
what,
Drew Stanton, I thought they were still winning the division.
With Stanton, they were at least getting a bye because they were winning games and they were finding a way to win games. I don't know if they would have won in the playoffs, but they would have won the division for sure.
But Carson Palmer, me and him picked them to win the Super Bowl in their place.
Yeah. They were. They
I thought had it all, and then everybody gets hurt, and I wouldn't even call. Again, I've said it many times. I don't call their wild card playoff game a playoff game. I call it Week 18.
I had them in the NFC title game this year to start with. They've impressed me more and more.
I think they're going all the way
as
too.
the years gone. I personally, and I know this sounds stupid, but at the time I thought it sounded smart, and it was affected by the injury bug. But I had the Cowboys actually winning the NFC. I really thought they had a chance to do it.
So did I.
With everyone at full strength plus the defensive additions, and I'm not talking about Greg Hardy. I'm referencing Byron Jones and Randy Gregory, who have both been good.
Yeah.
For them going forward, I think they have a good promise there with those two guys, but. I had Dallas as my NFC winner, but you started. I mean, listen, they lost Skandrick in training camp, and then you just go down the line with Romo and Bryant. And
it's not the same team it was in August. So,
no.
It's very they've been so decimated by injuries that who can blame you? I mean, I think I picked them to win the NFC this season.
I think they were winning the division. They would have won the division going away.
Oh,
I think at least 10 or 11 wins.
East, in this NFC East, Dallas, they stay healthy. They're winning the whole division literally without even trying.
By like week 8, they would have won the division.
Could have had a bye. I thought. I mean, even if they didn't. Okay, if they lost Dez, I think they still would have been fine. Dez is hard to replace when he's on. He's one of the best players in the league. But Romo just that was a gut punch, and that was it.
Yeah,
they were done.
For sure.
Absolutely. So we'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we'll finally get into New York Giants after our interview with Chris Lopresti and then us going off on other things. We'll get to MLB after that. We have a little bit of NBA and NHL to get to. We'll get to our picks at 7 o'clock, and then we will wrap up the semester as the last sports show to be on the air for the fall semester. So how about that? 15 minutes past 5 o'clock hour, you're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and Craig Gorbunoff. Back after this.
Hi, this is Ed Helvey, founder of Montclair State Radio way back in 1966. And you're listening to 90.3 FM WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Still the voice of Montclair State.
Makes you feel happy like an old-time movie. I'll tell you about the magic and the free your soul, but it's like
22 minutes past 5 o'clock hour. You are listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call to join the conversation. We have Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and Craig Gorbunoff in Studio A for the final edition of the show for the fall semester. So we just got done with an hour-and-a-half discussion of the Jets. Now we'll get into probably about a 10-minute discussion of the Giants. No, I'm kidding.
Because boo Giants now.
Well, because the Giants, there's not really a lot to say, just except that the team sucks. So we'll start with that and just with what's going on in the NFC East, or least, as we like to say. Now, I'll give the Giants credit. In a game that they needed desperately a win, they got in Miami. They beat them 31-24. In a game Eli Manning especially had to step up. He goes 27 for 31, throws 337 yards, 4 touchdowns. Beckham steps up, 2 touchdowns. Did you see the one that they called out of bounds? And just somehow he stayed in? It looked like...
I'm really getting sick and tired of talking about this guy.
It looked like
I'm not. I'll be real with you. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of my favorite players in the NFL.
He's one of my favorite players, but as a person, I don't like him.
No, he's a really great player, but I have the incident for me that really bothers me was in the Jet game, kicking the ball, and I don't care. I show up the Jets for all you want.
I don't
cost
really
him the game,
pretty much.
But he made the catch to save them. I don't say he cost them the game. Josh Brown missed the field goal.
That's
listen,
true. He did make the catch.
You want to go to Tom Coughlin's at the root of the issue there, as he has been all year. He and Eli Manning's terrible decision making.
I wouldn't blame Coughlin. I think that was the right call on 4th and 2. That defense is garbage. But
I understand why
they could have gotten the first down without scoring. Eli Manning just forced it into double coverage.
This is the only reason I disagree with you. When you're inside the 10, it's a very hard play to make, especially with a quarterback who doesn't do well in tight coverage.
Run it.
They don't run the ball well, though. They don't run the ball well.
But when you're up by 10 points at the beginning of the 4th quarter, I'm sorry. I'm taking the guaranteed points. Kick the 19-yard field goal, go up by 13.
See, that's my thing. Because if you go up 13, I don't know if the Jets scored 2 touchdowns to win.
Yeah.
With the Giants up 13.
I do.
It took them 14 minutes to tie the game.
But
the Jets had the ball for 3 possessions in the second half.
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that if they needed to, they couldn't score a touchdown instead of a field goal?
We'll never know.
Look at it from the position, though.
We'll find out on Craig's
And who knows if this situation would ever have come up. But you think about that first drive the Jets had after the interception by Miles, right?
Right.
Because it was only a 10-point game, they could settle for the 3. So they saved more time. They just kicked because they didn't get in the end zone. So that didn't kill them there. If the Giants score a touchdown, that makes the Jets have to put it in the end zone.
Well, hold on. And if you want to talk about, too, just Giants had another chance to seal it. Maybe if they got a first down after the field goal.
That's true.
I mean,
that was even worse.
It boils down to the 4th and 2 call, and I get everyone saying, well, so the guaranteed points. There's not that big of a distance between 10 and 13. I mean, I understand you need a field goal or a touchdown instead of a field goal to win it, but it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah.
But,
the play calling there was terrible.
Let's talk about how they can't get a first down. Yeah. Let's talk about how they can't drain the clock. Like, it's
not a point.
It's not play calling. It's this offense has an inability to execute when they need to close out a game.
I know everyone wants to say they probably should have won 5 more games. But
no, they shouldn't have.
To me, thank you. See, that's what I say. To me, I never thought they were anything good at all.
You know what's really funny, though? And I saw this stat the other day, and it's really funny. If every game that the Giants played this year was 47 seconds shorter,
but it doesn't.
Be 10-2.
But it doesn't. That's
I know,
the problem.
But that's the. And
I know, but
the point is they can't win in the last 2 minutes of a game.
They can't close out a game.
Everyone banks on this whole, well, only if the game would have ended. But you know what? It doesn't. And it's not enough of an excuse to say, we don't have any luck at the end of the game. This team is flawed. Okay, the defense is
Garbage.
awful.
No, it's
Is
awful.
Mark Herschlich is like the worst
I
linebacker
don't-
in the
and
NFL.
I
There's no
don't-
reason he should be starting games.
I don't care healthy or not with Beeson or not. That's whatever. They're not good enough on defense. They overpaid for Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. They have Prince Mukamara who plays a few plays on and a few plays off a day. and
JPP
that's
became
about
a
it.
media sideshow this whole summer.
JPP is out there swinging a club at people. All right.
Wait. My favorite thing is in that Jet game. Who was calling the game? Iron Eagle. Iron Eagle says JPP clubs that right hand
What?
on the
come
side
on.
of the helmet of Brenner Giacomini. And
Stop
I said,
it.
I said, no, it is not a hand. If you're
no.
going to use the word clubs, it is a club because it
Yeah.
is
Stop
taken
it.
to a ball.
Wow.
Stop it.
Yeah, another reason why I said what I
Nick,
said about Iron Eagle.
I get
before
what you're
the
saying.
show.
They didn't end, but what I'm trying to say is the point is the Giants cannot win a game under
No,
2 minutes.
I get you. But you know what? They were never good enough in the first. I'm sorry, they're not good enough in the
I
first
agree.
58
I
minutes
agree.
either.
No.
because
they're
if
not.
it doesn't have to come down to the last
No 2
two,
minutes NFC
then they
East
would have
is.
won anyway.
Yeah, if you're a good enough team, it doesn't come down to the last 47 seconds of
Exactly.
the game.
Thank you.
Exactly. And I understand that and I get that, which is why even if they were 10-2 at this point, they still lose in the first round of the playoffs.
But listen, let's not even let it get to that. And I'm not
Exactly.
trying to hate the Giants here, but they get in, and this is where it starts.
Anybody
and I
but
got
the
a
Giants or
problem
Eagles.
personally as a fan when the best team doesn't win. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I feel that at least twice in their history, I would argue 3 times against the Bills as well, the best team did not win the whole thing.
Yeah, that's true.
And I kind of feel like we get cheated by it. Now, listen, good for them. Listen, they make the plays, they win the game. All more power to them. But I have seen teams catch breaks, and then there have been the breaks the Giants catch. Okay.
First of all, let's talk about 2007 for a second. The Giants didn't have any business beating.
No.
I'm not even going to say the Patriots. The Brett Favre Packers.
No.
They didn't have any business winning that game in Lambeau.
Thank you. The Brett Favre Packers. I want to get. I don't, and I'm not trying to say that I wish they missed the playoffs. Okay, but if
They shouldn't have made it in the first
if
place.
they get in, all the conversation shifts to Odell Beckham Jr. and Eli Manning and the Giants and Tom Coughlin, Giants, and I don't even think they're worth focusing on that much.
Hey, you know what else it's going to focus on, too? Oh, last 2 times they played the Patriots in the regular season. Patriots are also in the playoffs. They're the 1 seed.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
I'm so sick of, you're right, I'm sick and tired of the media with all this
The media
crap.
coverage gets hijacked by the fact that they got in. So when you talk about, like, how many times did you hear before the New England game this year, well, they spoiled perfect seasons the Patriots had in the past, and if the Giants get in, you know what? Stop saying if. They need to go do it, okay? I'm a huge Ranger fan. I'm sick and tired of hearing we need to play better. Start playing better. It's very simple.
It's almost similar to the whole 86 World Series reference to the Mets in the World Series this year. It was fun to put on Facebook and say, hey, take a look at this. But when SNY is going off on it for an hour, just stop.
Well,
enough with the media
past
crap
is the
on
past.
this.
I mean, well, first of all, we're all TV majors, right?
Right.
This is literally going to be your job.
Right.
I mean, it is your job as the media to tell the story. Unfortunately, the story is what the story is.
No,
the story is that the Giants
I get
beat
that.
the Patriots twice in the
I
Super
get
Bowl
that.
and didn't earn it.
I just don't.
I mean,
I don't think it needs to be.
It doesn't need to be
as-
referenced 24,000
as
times on New
overly
York Sports Radio or
publicized as it
TV.
becomes. No, listen,
all
in
I
New
can
York,
say
that's
is
one
welcome
thing.
to the business, boys, because that's it.
No, in New York, that's one thing. But I'm saying on a national level, the Cardinals get. To me, the Arizona Cardinals get very little attention.
They get none.
At
They
all.
literally get zero.
And they're a really, really good football team with good players on it. I mean, I'm not saying you got to go sit down and watch the St. Louis Rams play. But how many times have you heard the name Aaron Donald this year until this afternoon at NFL Network when they said, get ready for tonight's game?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't even watch it.
Also,
this
not to
afternoon.
mention,
Zero times.
I don't really watch until Sunday comes when I watch Red Zone, but there's nothing on TV.
Also, and here's another thing. You know, you look at Week 17. They normally don't do this, but if it comes down to the Giants-Eagles, how fast are they going to push that to Sunday night? Probably immediately.
Well,
they
okay,
push that to Sunday night.
But first of all, it's a great rivalry.
It's a great rivalry. It is. I'm just saying that's what's going to happen because it's a New York team.
I just don't.
And it's the story, like you said. That's what's going to happen.
And Then they use the highlights. Miracle at the Meadowlands, right?
Yeah.
D-Jax
Right.
going
Yeah.
like, which by the way, how funny was it against the Cowboys when he did the thing?
That was kind of funny.
And I was like, oh my God, he's going to take it to the house. And then it was like the worst punt return in the
But then
history
he
of punt
redeemed
returns.
himself.
Right? Like a minute later.
He giveth and taketh away, D-Jax.
But
That's really the way he is.
That was so fun. I love when he goes, yeah, make some noise, and then I love really goofy players. Deshaun Jackson's
that
a
will
goofy
be
player.
the game that the Redskins
Cowboys killer.
will want back, because
The Dallas game?
I mean they made, if he just returned that normally and even just went down, they could just,
or a fair catch,
right? And
wave your hand up in the
maybe
air.
just drive for a field goal for the win and just go home. That, I mean, they probably would have clinched the division by now if they won that game.
No, that's 100% true.
Yep.
That is the game they'll want back
That's
for their
that is
foolishness.
Absolutely true. We'll take a quick break here on the show. Coming up, we'll continue. My brain's fried this week. We'll continue our discussion with the Giants, their situation, how they can get into the playoffs, and our prediction of who's coming out of the NFC East, because we have to debate on it. 32 minutes past 5 o'clock hour. You are listening to SMC Sports Special 4-Hour Edition on 90.3 FM. We're on until 8 o'clock tonight. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and Craig Gorbunoff. We are back after this. 37 minutes past the 5 o'clock hour. You are listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 WMSC, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, and Craig Gorbunoff still with us in the studio.
I know. I'm surprised, too.
So we just got done discussing all of the Giants and their Miami game. Now let's kind of get into their playoff chances, because...
What playoff chances? There we go. Segment over.
NFC, listen, NFC least anybody, the New Jersey Jackals can make it at this point for all I care. For all I care. That's how bad this division is. You got the Cowboys at 4-9. Everybody else is tied for the first place. Why don't we just send them all into the playoffs, have a 3-team Royal Rumble, and the winner goes...
All right.
And the winner goes
Take
gets
it
killed
easy
in the
over there,
first
Jim
round.
Ross. Let's get back to the playoffs.
Oh, good God!
Good God, that man is a family.
My God almighty! 4 teams, 100-yard field, and a real slobber knocker.
I love Craig.
Oh, Craig, that was great. All right.
Now, when you look at it, though, now I'm going to say it right now. The Giants got no shot at winning this NFC East. They got the toughest schedule. They have Carolina this weekend. They're at Minnesota next Sunday. And then, of course, you have the Philadelphia matchup on Week 17.
They could probably, and this is more of a testament to the way the division is, they could probably lose once and still have a chance. Like, if they lost this week...
This would be the one they could afford to
and
lose.
then won the last 2, they could make it.
Because you have Philly and Washington play next week. One of those teams has to lose.
Right, unless there's a tie.
Unless
As
there's
Craig
a tie,
said in the break, which is a horrifying
might
thought.
be a
Which,
tie.
again, I may throw myself through a window.
I
if
wouldn't
see
be
that.
surprised with this division. But you know,
But,
a lot of people are talking
0-0
about
tie.
that the Giants are the team most likely to end Carolina's streak because the Giants are great at ending undefeated streaks.
Oh wow, they did it against the Patriots one time. Stop it. That's another example.
Yeah.
But you know what?
But-
he plays good against good teams. He plays great against Patriots. He's never faced a team like Cam Newton and the Panthers
But
before.
you
That's
know-
different, though.
Wait. You mean he's never faced a perfectly average team that's
No,
about
no,
to
no,
win
no,
their
no.
division?
Yeah,
that's
like
what I was about to
the
get on. I
Redskins
think
and
the
Eagles?
Panthers are not as good as their record dictates. I
Thank
think the
you.
Giants actually do have a fairly decent shot at winning this
They
game.
have a good shot,
They're
but I'm
in it.
saying
if they can figure out how to just slow down the run.
exactly.
Yeah.
My point is though, this story is only based on when the Giants play the Patriots. Now you're playing the Panthers. What's a different story?
Yeah, you're right.
That's what I'm saying.
But
I didn't mean to mix words there. That's my
take
point, though.
To take a look at the schedules here, right? So you have the 3 of them at 6 and 7. The Giants are at home against Carolina this week. Now, I will be picking Carolina. There's spoiler on my pick.
A spoiler on
But
myself too.
I will be picking Carolina in that game.
Go.
And then they're at Minnesota
Giant
next
fan.
week. Now, I know the shine has come off the Vikings, but it's not an easy game at all, especially
Not
on the
in
road.
Minnesota either.
No, and the Giants don't do well against the run, and we're talking about Adrian Peterson here. And the Vikings still have playoff aspirations, so I would probably lean towards Minnesota there. And then they come home and play the Eagles. Now, if they lose both of the next 2, that game's meaningless at that point anyway.
Right.
You look at the Eagles. They have the Cardinals this week at home.
I don't think they have a shot at
I
it.
don't think they're beating Arizona. They're red hot, and they might play it close because the Cardinals have had a few letdowns this year.
And the Eagles have had a lot of really good wins, too.
But I picked the Cardinals in this game.
I know they were able to beat the Patriots. I don't think Lightning is going to strike twice.
No,
they're not that good of a team.
Everything
and you
went
can say the
wrong
Patriots
there.
are banged up all you want or whatever. The fact of the matter is they beat the Patriots, so you got that on your wing, too.
Yeah,
but I agree.
Away from the injuries, everything in that game that the Patriots could have done wrong, the most unpatriot things. Turnovers, careless penalties, dumb mistakes. That's what happened in that
game.
Giving up special teams, touchdowns.
Play calling, I thought, was atrocious, too.
Yeah. But, okay, so the Eagles have Arizona this week. They could lose this game and beat Washington next week and still have their shot. And then they end with the Giants. And then the Redskins, they're home for the Bills this weekend. I would lean towards Washington. They're good at home.
I think I picked Washington, too.
I don't really like the way the Bills are playing. They're very
The only thing I like about the Bills is I like Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback.
I love Tyrod Taylor.
I did.
I think, he's really stepped up here in his first opportunity to be a starter.
I'd be interested to see what they're like next year when everyone's healthy. You know, when they have Carlos Williams and they have Watkins going and Tyrod and LaShawn McCoy.
And you know what? McCoy had a decent game against the Eagles. Robert Woods had a good game. Sammy Watkins had a good game. I don't know if I would lean towards the Redskins, actually. I think the Bills
at
are
home,
more
I like them at home.
I think the Bills are more likely to win that game than the Redskins are.
To me, Washington, and I'm not saying Chicago is a good team. I'm disappointed in them, really. I thought they had a shot to get in this wild card hunt.
That game was all back and forth.
Yeah, but to me, Washington proved something last week in Chicago because they gave away a stinker against Dallas. I mean, that game was ugly to watch. And the last 2 minutes, the Redskins gave it away, got it back, and then gave it away anyway. So that was a terrible loss. And in past years, the Redskins under Jay Gruden the year before, they would fold in a game like last week in Chicago. They would absolutely fall apart, and they did not. They found a way to win. It wasn't pretty. They made turnovers, they made mistakes, but they found a way to win the game. So I think they go into this week against Buffalo saying, we have our destiny in our hands. Let's go get it done. I think I got to be honest with you, I think they're winning out. That's just me.
For Washington?
But they have the Bills this week. If they win the Eagle game, they're in.
Yeah.
And,
you win this
and
week
then
and
they
you beat
have
Philly
Dallas
Saturday,
on the road,
over.
and I think they could finish 9-7.
And at that point, Dallas will probably bench
Dallas is
Castle
done.
and play whoever the
Kellen
other
Moore.
guy is. Yeah,
they should play Kellen Moore.
They should play
already.
Kellen Moore on Saturday because this is my point, and I agree with Sean Martin's article with Inside the Star. Shout out to them. For Kellen Moore to play this week, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's going to lose? Let him go out. Let him have fun.
You know what?
Maybe he'll make a few plays.
They traded a draft pick for him. It wasn't a high pick, but they traded for him.
Maybe he'll go out with more confidence
now,
than Matt Castle
they
will.
saw something there that they wanted to. Why? Because why him? Of anyone. You could bring in any practice squad quarterback. But they brought him in to see maybe if he could do anything at all at any point, if he was given the chance to. He was given the chance to compete for the backup job. He didn't get it over, unbelievably, Whedon. Somehow, I can't even imagine
Who was
that.
cut in 4 weeks.
But, haven't you heard? He's Roger Staubach. But anyway, I think they should play Kellen Moore. I mean, I
think they should.
Why not? Listen, they're not going to win anyway, but let them play. You might be able to see.
Let the boys play.
Exactly. As Skip Bayless would say, he's a
Let
winner.
them play.
He's a baller. Let the man play.
Again, he may go out with more confidence than Matt Castle. The kid's got nothing to lose.
Right.
Jason Garrett pats him on the back. Hey, kid, there's nothing really to play for. Go have some fun out there.
Yeah.
We lose sight of everything. Like, football's supposed to be fun, and we lose sight of the whole playoff aspect and everything. It's a business thing. We get it. But you know what?
When you're 5-11, you might as well have some fun. You might as well laugh at yourself.
4-9,
really.
actually. But when you're right,
4-9. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you're 4-9, go out and have fun. You're playing a tough team,
Right.
sure, but you know what? Go have some fun, make a couple plays. Maybe Des Bryant will catch more than a pass in the last 6 weeks. And you know what? Maybe you make it a tighter game because honestly, I don't think Matt Castle's going out with any confidence. I think he's going out thinking, "Oh, we've got a shot at this thing. We got to win, or we lose 1 with 3. Maybe we got a shot. Let the kid play." That's all I got to say about that.
I get you.
I think with the loss this week, the Cowboys are mathematically eliminated. So
they are.
Yeah, but
I think you're going to see Castle play this. You're still playing to win the NFC East. I mean, you can't throw away the season.
No, you have to.
No, I know that sounds ridiculous.
I get both sides.
But as a franchise,
I get both sides.
You got to keep in mind, this is a business, Nick. This is a business, okay? They need to make money. They need to sell playoff T-shirts. They need to sell
What
NFC
playoff
East.
T-shirt?
No,
Whoa,
they
whoa,
need,
hang
wait,
on
wait.
here.
They need to sell NFC East champion T-shirt. They want that playoff spot. They don't care if they get it with 5 wins. They're going to try their best
At
to get
this
it.
point, all four have shirts, not just 2. All 4 do.
I understand that, but they're not winning. Okay, even if they beat the Jets Saturday.
I know that. You know that. Sean knows that. Mike Sheehan, who knows nothing about football, knows that.
I think even
know.
Sean Martin knows
my
that.
pet dog knows that. Sean Martin knows that. Jerry Jones doesn't care that we all know that. Jerry Jones wants to make the playoffs.
I understand that, but it's not even... What will sell more tickets in the long run? Winning the division next year. Listen, if they won the division, sure, they'll have a home playoff game. They'll sell the place out.
Jerry Jones isn't even going to live to next year. I mean, how old is that man?
That took a dark turn.
I get a little morbid when I'm hungry.
My point is, it is more logical at this point to set themselves up. Okay, if they win 2 games and still don't make the playoff, right? If they win 2 of these next 3 games, or 4 games, 3 games, excuse me, and they don't make it anyway, and then they don't pick as high as they could have, which either takes them out of getting a better player, A, or B, leveraging that pick on a team that wants it and trading down and getting more picks later. I just think at this point, it is completely nonsensical. Romo couldn't even play the playoff game. So what? You come back to win this division to then go home?
Actually, Jerry Jones said he could probably be ready for the playoffs.
Don't get me wrong. I 100% agree with what you are saying. I'm playing devil's advocate. I get you. I'm telling you what is going to happen.
Oh, I agree with you.
Yeah. On paper.
We all know what's going to happen. Matt Castle's going to go out and start on Saturday. He's going to throw 6 picks, and we're going to lose by 40.
On paper, the Cowboys still have a shot at this division. And as a football team, you cannot give up the season when you still have a shot at winning this division.
I understand that.
I agree that. I
get that. I'm not saying they have to tell them to tank.
Oh, well,
but
it's not tanking, but I think management, the coaches, they all believe Matt Castle, for whatever reason, gives you the best shot of winning this game.
Hey, listen, who knows? You know what? Sometimes...
You know what? Let me suit up. I'll play quarterback.
You don't tank,
please,
and you win a few games, and it seems like it worked out for the Knicks, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Now, maybe if Dallas had a lighter schedule, because I think out of the 4, besides, I'd say the Giants who have the actual shot, Cowboys got the hardest schedule. They have the Jets. They have the Bills. Now, even though the Bills haven't been playing great, I still think they're going to...
difficult with Matt Castle
at
quarterback.
I still think Dallas is going to lose. And then you have Washington
Matt
at
Castle
Dallas.
Going back to play his former team for a week in the Bills.
Yeah, he was a Bill for a day and a half.
In other news, shout out to my cousins, my uncle, my aunt, who are in Dallas for this game right now. So.
Oh, nice.
Oh, what up? Enjoy watching a loss.
Probably. My uncle sent me a picture of him kissing a star on the field because they got a stadium tour yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And I'm
just, I was down there last year.
You told me about that.
For Colts Cowboys.
Yeah.
The Colts got smacked, but they really didn't play anyone
fun.
anyway. It was, I didn't even
you
care.
were in anyway.
We won the division at that point. I've never been happier for my father in my life. He was beaming with joy when they won the division.
Yeah, because that was the game they won the division.
To be there that day with the clinching, and they rolled the Colts, and Des Bryant, Terrence, they all had huge games. It was awesome, and they packed the place. 98,000 people. They did it right. Okay. By the way, I was there for the state championships week, the state championship weekend in Texas. If you get a chance to go on the internet this weekend after it's over, watch it, please. Everyone, it is awesome stuff.
You know what? Friday Night Lights. It's the same
real
thing.
Life.
That's real life.
57,000 people for the night game.
High school football in Texas is a religion.
In the South,
yeah.
But
in Texas,
specifically,
it's a religion.
Texas, Virginia, all those movies that they're like true stories, and like Friday Night Lights. No, they're actually happens.
Yeah. It really does.
It's fantastic stuff. But yeah, back on to the NFC East here. I have Washington finding a way to win this. I like Kirk. I like it, Kirk Cousins. All right, if that's what he wants to know, yes, I do.
I like that. I like that.
I do like that. I root for Kirk Cousins. To be honest with you, I think he's he seems like a really good guy, and he's earned his spot. Okay, he has fought Robert Griffin tooth and nail. It hasn't been that hard to beat Robert Griffin out for the job because he's a disaster.
Oh no!
But still, I respect the job he's done. They're a really odd team. They get blown out one week, they come back and they win a big game against a good team the next week, and their running game was supposed to be their strength, and they've gone backwards in that department. They run for like less than 100 yards a game with 3 different players at once in most of the games this season, and Alfred Morris finally just had his first touchdown of the year. That was another fantasy pick of mine, so he was just fantastic. But I just think Washington finds a way to win this division. Who do you guys have?
You see, this is a tough one. To me, I'm going Washington just based off the lighter schedule. The Giants, I feel like they've got a shot, but again, they've got the hardest one. Philadelphia just doesn't look like a team anymore.
I tell you what. Well, the last few weeks they've
Last few
been
weeks
better.
they've been on and off.
I'm gonna have to say the Eagles win this division.
I tell you
Anything
what.
but the Eagles, please.
They're gonna get smacked by the Cardinals, but I do not trust the Redskins. I mean, they should have beat Dallas. I mean, we talked about it
Yes,
before.
that's the game they'll want back.
They should have beat Dallas, and I think that's gonna bite them in the butt. And I think down the stretch, the Eagles are going to win enough games
I'll
to win the
say it
division.
now, and maybe I'll be wrong.
I won't be surprised if any of these three win the division.
But
I
if
really don't.
Philly wins Sunday night against Arizona, to me they're winning the because then
that's it.
They're hot. They beat a great team at that point.
Because
and
you
now
know
they
what-
look at it. Well, how could we not beat? Now that maybe they look past them, but
Which
to
they
me,
can't.
No, they're going to.
No, I'm referring to
You
Washington.
got to play one game at a time, but you're right. When you look at Philly, and to me, again,
If
Washington
they win
has
tonight, it's the momentum builder. to end it.
Washington has the lightest schedule, so I'm going with them. If Philly somehow upsets Arizona on Sunday, then they go into is that game in Philly or in Washington?
It's in Philly.
So it's in
See,
Philadelphia. You got the
yeah.
shot right there.
I mean,
it's in front of you.
listen,
I would agree.
They don't really even have to beat Arizona because as long as they'd be 6-8, and even if the Redskins won, the Redskins would be 7-7. If the Eagles won against Washington, then they'd be 7-8, and Washington would be 7-8, and then the last week of the season would be what it comes down to.
Yep.
And then I don't know the tiebreaker situation at that point. Probably would go to the conference record because the Eagles lost to them in week, I don't know, 5, whatever
earlier
that was.
in the season.
They lost to Washington earlier in the year at Washington. So the tiebreaker would then come into play, and Washington has Dallas the last week of the season, and the Eagles have the Giants last week of the season. I don't know how it works out for the Giants. I would imagine, certainly they want both teams to lose this weekend, but I think of the two, I would say they could afford the Eagles to go down because they play the Eagles again. So if the Eagles lost, that would keep them, if the Eagles lost and the Giants lost, that would give them a chance. If the Eagles win and Washington wins and they lose, the Viking game is a must-win, and they need help.
Yeah, to me, the Eagles have I think the Eagles are going to win this division.
They're kind of coming back together as a group after getting smacked on live television. Yeah,
they're really gelling right now, and I just don't trust the Redskins. I don't know.
I don't trust a team in this division.
They've won games that are awesome, but they've also.
like I said, they were losing 24-0 at the half at Tampa.
Yeah.
They came back on 31-24. They're really hard to figure out.
Here's one thing I think all three of us can agree on: the winner of this NFC East deserves nothing more than a whipping in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
I hope
which
so.
I expect to be happening.
Probably get Seattle.
Well, they would be the 4th seed. Seattle's not going to be the 6th seed, are they?
No. 4 plays 5 and 3 plays 6.
You're right. 4 plays 5.
So
be
if
most
Seattle's
likely Seattle.
the 5, then I would say I would pick Seattle there pretty across the board. I'd say just about everyone would. So
I don't know somebody who wouldn't.
Yeah.
just to be perfectly frank.
Anyway,
I have to get going, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was about to say you're only going to stay for an hour.
Because I stayed here an hour overtime. But Sean, thanks for having me on the show. SMC Sports. It's great.
It was great having you, Craig.
Great to see you with my baby DJ and grandbaby DJ.
Oh, thank you.
Having some good conversation.
You'll be
I had a
proud
lot
to
of
know
fun.
that by way of your training methods, I passed as well. So I owe as much to you as I owe to him.
And,
grandbaby DJ.
My grandbaby DJ.
Grandbaby DJ.
And yeah, let's go Jets on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's gonna happen.
I'm picking you to win, but of course I have to stay royal to my Cowboys.
I feel you.
But I will be picking the Jets to win as I spoil that pick too. What did we spoil? Half of them already?
Not really.
Maybe like 3 or 4.
Whatever.
So,
We'll
Craig,
still go through them.
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. So we'll take a quick break here on the show. We'll leave that into the 6 o'clock hour. We'll get into our disappointments and impressive teams. We'll get into MLB, little NHL, little NBA, and our picks at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. 54 minutes past 5 o'clock hour, you're listening to SMC Sports on 90.3 FM. 973-655-4256 is the number to call. To join the conversation, Sean McChesney, Nick Flaherty, Craig Gorbunoff. Back after this.